Welcome to Booking It. Today's episode will be The Wheel of Time, Part 2. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Booking It. I'm, of course, your eloquent host, Cooper Cobbs, and joining me today is my good friend, and what did they call people who like Wheel of Time again, Tanner? Like...
Nerds?
No, yeah. Yes, that's the correct answer. Anyway, thanks for coming on, Tanner, as always. Not coming on, you're here permanently, but I feel like they call them wheelies. No? Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Anyway.
Dude, I wouldn't know.
They're not Swifties, they're wheelies. I don't know. Anyway. Today, we are continuing our discussion on epic fantasy series, The Wheel of Time. So our part 2, we're going to kind of dive into some more spoiler territory, discuss the ending, so it's more specific character arcs, some specific plot choices, character beats, even some philosophical ideas.
Philosophical ideas?
Yeah, totally. Seriously. We'll get into that, trust me. It'll be hopefully worth your while. I think it will be. At least I guarantee you, the things that I have thought about with Wheel of Time, nobody thought about before. Like, you weren't on that one, but I talked to Bryson about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, okay? And I was like thinking about Jean-Jacques Rousseau and the social contract and things like this. And I was like, this book doesn't deserve this. Like, why am I giving this much thought to something that does not... Anyway, but Wheel of Time is better than Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
I think the Wheel of Time deserves connections to real world stuff, just because it's too deep of lore and right. so entrenched that you can have full philosophical discussions within the world.
Right. It's not a tween romance novel like dressing up as some profound things which people actually, I don't know, buy into with Hunger Games. But with Wheel of Time, it's like 14 books. It's got a lot of content and actually presents some ideas that are like woven through, to use a metaphor that we talked about last time in the Wheel of Time. Anyway, so it merits thought because you can't just read 14 books and not think about it, because that would be antithetical to what we encourage here at Booking It. So, all to say, I finished the Wheel of Time, A Memory of Light, back in May. Tanner finished it a few weeks ago in July. So Tanner, you finished A Memory of Light. What were your thoughts, just like with the character arcs, with how the plot worked out, how everything resolved? Were you satisfied? Were you not? Good, bad? I don't know. Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, let's open this up. I'm a quarter of the way through the first book again.
Oh, no. I did not know this. No. Oh, boy.
Since the last episode and now, I've gotten a quarter of the way through the first book.
To use a metaphor, I have gone through withdrawal. I'm over it. Tanner didn't make it. He did not make it. He went back.
I was doing this for
addiction recovery. We need addiction recovery hotline, quick.
I was doing this for pure research purposes only.
And then you got a quarter of the way through, and it got serious.
At least that's what I told myself. I'm not going to finish it. I have other books I have to read. But nonetheless, I did get a quarter of the way through the first book. But the reason for that is, the reason why I restarted it was I legitimately wanted to see, remember and know for myself again, who the heck was Rand al'Thor before A Memory of Light? Because you've gone through 14 books, and I went through it even longer than you did. It took me longer to get through them. Right. So, my idea of Rand had progressed so far and, had, molded with the books for so long that, trying to remember back to that sheep herder, I was having almost as much trouble as Rand was. Who was that guy?
Yeah.
So... that's why I'm doing, that's what this is for, research purposes. Did our three main characters actually change? Some people, like Nynaeve, they did not. Nynaeve changed, in 3 minuscule aspects, but, character herself didn't actually change. I'm going off on a tangent. Don't let me do that. Memory of Light, character arcs. Really? It's a significant between 14 books. The amount of change that happened between them. To see like there were some lines in the first book where Rand was like second guessing like if she should walk down one path or another. And I'm like, oh man, the character arc between this and like a guy over here who's deciding like trying to decide whether he's going to let go of one country or the other is like so significant.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you a question. So I've heard it said on the internet before that maybe this is kind of two claims, but they're very interrelated. That A, Rand al'Thor is the best developed fantasy character ever, and number two, he has the best arc of any character in a fantasy story. Thoughts?
Definite. I think best development can be said. Like, I mean, proportionally, it would make sense that he would have the best development. Like the ratio. Like if you did ratios between normal sized books and the Wheel of Time series, then it would make sense that Rand would be extremely well developed. It would make a ton of sense.
You would hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, you would really hope so. It's even more impressive though whenever you remember that there are like full books where he's not mentioned. Period.
That's not true.
Okay, fine. There are full books in which we do not show up into his point of view the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, like there's one, I think. One or two.
Well, there was a second one that kind of pushed on the edges
hang on.
of that.
So, what's the one after Winter's Heart? The one that everybody thinks is the worst one. Crossroads of Twilight? Crossroads of Twilight, I don't think we get in his point of view. Except at, like, maybe the end. And then I think Towers of Midnight, we see him a lot, but it's from other people's point of view. I don't think we ever get his point of view. Except maybe, like, once or twice. So, anyway, that's irrelevant. But, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was looking at the book lineup. I'm like, I don't remember the names of these anymore. Besides the first one and, A Memory of Light, that's about it. Like,
yeah, they kind of
The Eye of the World and A Memory of Light.
The fantasy thing of the fantasy thing. That was the name.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't know that I could call him the best fantasy character of all time though. Like, I can't say that he had the best arc. I think that there are a lot of other characters that have had really good arcs. Like, thinking back to, you can't really say that Frodo ever had an arc, but like Sam had an arc.
Yeah.
That was impressive. I think I think Sam's arc still wins out comparatively to this, to Rand's. But nonetheless, it's still a really good arc. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, top 10 that I've read so far, up there. There's just so much change and good change between, Rand and Eye of the World and Rand and A Memory of Light. And even, like, the last 3 books, like, the change between him in the last 3 books and the way that he matured right there towards the end was really good too. Yeah.
When you finished the books, did you feel satisfied? Like, you spent, 2 years, 14 books, who knows how many millions of words. You got to the point, you ended the story. Like, did you feel like it was worth it? Like, it was good? Did you feel like something was left that wasn't captured? I don't know.
I feel like I think it was good. I remember I had finished it and I was sitting on my fireplace. I'm just like, wait a second. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no more discovery of the Wheel of Time to do. Like, there's no more waiting. Like, that's it. I'm done. And I'm like, I remember sitting there and I'm like, I feel like I should be upset about this to some extent. Yeah. Right? Like, I feel like I'm supposed to, but I'm not entirely upset. Like, I really appreciate the way that we ended it right there. Right? The wind came up around Rand. It passed over everything. Yeah. And, I'm just like, he's happy. Like, you don't want to read another book about Rand because you know that there's nothing else for him to do. And there are definitely nights where I daydream about what the heck Rand is doing in some of these cities when he can just, tell a house to appear and it will.
Yeah. Having a lot of fun, I'm sure. Yeah.
But it doesn't deserve another book. I think that I was really satisfied with the way that everything wrapped up, and I didn't feel empty whenever I finished it. I think that's something I expected to feel a little bit after I was done with it. But really, I finished it, and I'm like, I just want history books about the Age of Legends now. Like,
Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Like if you can be filled and sad at the end of the book, I think that's a good sign. I think it's a good
yeah.
sign. So Sanderson, obviously took over for Jordan. He did things a little differently. I saw some people say like he kind of was more plot character beat focused and kind of didn't do as much with side characters. Even though we get like the two characters, what are their names?
Pavara
Yeah.
and Androl.
Right. And I like that part actually. I think apparently there's this huge debate about whether they were, good or not. And I understand that. Like it's kind of weird to have the majority of the POVs, ratio-wise at least, be these two random characters who we didn't really spend much time with. But I like their parts in it, honestly. But
Yeah.
anyway, we didn't get all these thousands of side characters, their arcs tied off perfectly. Like we got the one big arc, all the major characters, their arcs resolved. But I don't know. Do you ever feel like a certain character you thought didn't have the ending you wanted, or he didn't tie off this side character's ending the way you would have liked? Anything like that?
No, really not. I think part of what that felt like was just tying even more into the authenticity of like almost the real world-esque of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
it felt like as if I was reading like a history book from a point of view, and you're like, well, okay, I wouldn't expect to understand how their story ended completely because Rand didn't know how their story ended completely.
Yeah.
And Loyal didn't know how they ended completely. So like I wouldn't expect anything else.
Yeah.
It kind of added to like that mystique of the writing, I think, just all in all.
Yeah. Kind of going off of that, did you feel like the cost was worth it? Like the battle, like did enough people die? Did you feel the gravity of it enough, or do you feel like the characters got off easy at all?
I don't think I felt it until Swan died and Gareth Bryn. Those were the first ones that kind of like, okay, yeah, this is like I feel the cost. Like those were the first ones where I'm like, oh wow, like they're not just killing off random side characters and all the main characters are going to survive. They're like killing off like the big guns over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Gowan died, and I'm like, oh wow, they're really killing off the big characters over here.
Yeah, I mean that was foreshadowed a long time ago too. But yeah.
Yeah, it had been, but like nonetheless, like there's always
like,
a part
really
of you that's
happen?
like,
Yeah.
is it really going to happen, or are they going to play it off like the prophecy wasn't a big deal or something, right? But then it was when Egwene died. That's when I felt it. I was like, and now I understand that this was for reals and we weren't messing around,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I feel the same way. I think actually this is one of the major fantasy series where, every fantasy series like, oh no, this is a big battle against evil. The good guys are gonna lose. Oh my goodness, they win. And if I recall, although it was like almost 2 years ago at this point, we talked about the Green Ember. One of my complaints about the final book was like it didn't seem like there was this reason why they like won and didn't get like overpowered, if that makes sense. There's a really compelling reason. And I was like, anyway. But in this book, I really feel like they had I could map out in my mind the way the battle was going, where everything was, and so it actually kind of made sense to me. And just the way he managed to convey the desperateness of the situation, but also the hope, and then also the victory not feeling cheap, I think was actually pretty good as well. I would say my only complaints with that, and we'll get into it in just a second when we move into the next part of the podcast, but is I wonder if at certain moments when a character is about to make a sacrifice, and then like that doesn't happen, or he like jukes you, like, oh, they're gonna die, they're not gonna die. Like Galad does this, Lan does this, Iran does this, like 3 characters where they do something honorable, they're about to die, and then he gets saved, And I'm wondering if that lessens the impact of their sacrifice or not. I don't know. I'm still kind of up in the air on that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think that it lessened it, really. I think it's just because I guess part of that for me is just like the significance of the characters that did survive, or some of the characters that didn't survive,
Yeah.
Like even the ones that were foreshadowed, I'm like, yeah, even still, I feel like these characters survived out of, sheer luck, like it would be in a battle.
Yeah.
And, it's the ones you wouldn't expect to die, like Egwene, that do. And
Right.
you're like, oh, wow.
Young Amelin with so much promise, he just gets knocked out. Or like,
Yeah,
especially
with
with
no-
Swan,
with
like
no
you noted,
fo-
she's just gone. Like there's no build up, no climactic death. She's kind of just
Yeah. And there was no foreshadowing of it in any other book. It's just like she was enraged, and then she poured all of herself into the little flute, and then bang, gone. And
yeah,
you're like, what? Wait a second. What do you mean she's gone?
yeah, exactly.
I thought she was just going to be burnt out, and she was going to drop the flute, and she wasn't going to be able to channel anymore.
Yeah,
No, she's just crystal. Which honestly, if you're gonna go out, it's pretty dope to go out as a pillar of crystal.
no, it is
About
pretty cool. It's pretty sick ending. I'll admit.
20 feet deep, 60 feet up. Just
Yeah.
like, bang. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to read a review that I wrote right after finishing the book on Goodreads. And yes, I am on Goodreads. If you want, if you care to, I don't know, friend me or follow me. I don't know who cares about that anymore. But anyway, so it kind of has a lot of my thoughts, and I might explain some things, or Tanner might jump in or disagree or interrupt, whatnot. But I think it'll be a good jumping off point for the rest of our podcast and the things we hinted about last time that I want to get to. So, okay, here we go. By the way, I gave it 5 stars, so there's that. Keep that context in mind. It's over. I have read the series. I have braved the slog. I have reached the ending. One of Sanderson's great strengths is nailing the character beats, and those moments shine in the finale. All the main characters have epic moments and fairly satisfying conclusions and final moments. I do agree with one other review that Sanderson and Jordan seem to have different philosophies when it comes to side characters. Sanderson is narrative and main character focused, while Jordan, for better or worse, loves his world and every single side character and holds the world and the side characters in places of honor in his narrative. Perhaps the end of the series would have been different in this regard, with Jordan tying off loose ends with a poignant moment here and there. Nevertheless, Sanderson's fast-paced narrative style is a breath of fresh air after The Slog, and really worked in The Gathering Storm and Towers of Midnight. I do agree with the critique that most of the stuff before the final battle is a little anticlimactic and could have been cut down. Sometimes I thought that death juking a character took away from their sacrifice. Particularly Lan, when he has such a freaking epic moment, says the line, "Death is lighter than a feather," and then gets saved. It doesn't die. I'm still torn on this with Rand as well. My main critiques lie with the conflict of the Dark One and Rand. Philosophically, I think it's absurd that, number one, there can be a thing as pure evil, and number two, that free will requires, in all circumstances, the possibility of evil. I know this is probably the most boring critique one could make of Wheel of Time, which is true. But hear me out. The reason pure evil can exist, while pure good can exist, is because evil is not a metaphysically unique thing. It is an absence of good, or a privation of good. This is because if there are equal and opposite forces of incorruptible good and evil, the evil force isn't wholly evil, because incorruptibility is a good attribute. Same with cleverness. If you have something that is wholly evil, but also clever, as many evil characters happen to be, well, that character isn't wholly evil because that character is clever, and cleverness is good. Evil merely warps what is good. Additionally, if the forces were equal and opposite, there is no reason to call one good and one evil, since there is no overarching standard above them both. Picking one over the other is just a preference. Anyhow, this Augustinian complaint is one with the whole series, so let's go to why one can have free will and not fall into evil. So it's kind of at the end, where Rand realizes, like, they're like showing, I don't know, this is kind of weird at the end. By the way, this is not the review, this is me talking, but at the end, like, the Dark One and Rand are, like, projecting, like, this is what I would do. This is what I would do, like, if I won, into each other's heads. I don't know, that's kind of weird to me. Like, hey, look at this. It's like, I don't know.
I thought part of it was pretty dope. He would describe. I think this is probably the coolest thing I think Sanderson did, or maybe it was an idea that Jordan already had written down somewhere. But like all of the like threads of the pattern, just literally being like the powers.
Yeah.
Of the true source. Like I was like, oh, that's dope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like. I think that was really cool. So I think that part of it made a lot of sense, like because all this time we've been dealing with like, the true source and the one power and all of that stuff, right? So whenever they're like, channeling and all of that, like they're doing something, and that there would be something higher than that is being woven throughout the pattern that would make sense.
Yeah. Well, okay. Anyway,
That's
so
my take.
Right. Well, at the end here, Rand basically creates a world that he would make where it's no evil, all good, and he realizes, oh, these are just people, just puppets on a string. They don't actually have any freedom because I'm like restricting them. Anyway, okay. Rand realizes that defeating the Dark One would make everyone puppets on a string, doing good and not evil. Basically, he realizes that free will and evil not existing cannot coexist. Okay, that was a really badly worded sentence. Okay. He realizes that free will and evil not existing can't coexist. I think that's wrong. Of course, depending on worldviews and the way one approaches this question is different. A materialist, who might be a determinist, doesn't believe in free will. But as a Christian, I believe in human accountability and God's sovereignty. He has promised to create a new heavens and new earth where there is no suffering, where we freely love and worship God. One way to argue this is that the human soul desires good, but because of the fallen world and our corrupt nature, our desires are warped and seek low and disordered goods. But when our natures are made new, we freely desire the good, so by removing evil, we become more free. The ending is also unclear as to whether the conflict between the dragon will continue in a new cycle, so the victory and sealing of the Dark One could be meaningless. I understand that ushering a golden age or making time linear would have been narratively hard to do, but these are just problems with telling a Western story in a quasi-Eastern worldview. Okay, concluding paragraph, we're almost done. A Memory of Light did bring about satisfying closure to a massive series. I can help but feel there are ways this epic world and story could have been completed better, but Sanderson, despite his faults, is to be commended for his work here. I am little sad that the series is over after a 1.5-year journey, but I am glad to have reached the ending. Or at least, unending. Haha, no kidding.
That was well done.
I had
to
indulge myself there. Anyway.
You have to give Jordan those openings and closings. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Talk about consistency that changes every time is just amazing. You know?
It doesn't feel like hack or forced or something like that. Anyway.
Exactly. It's not like a wind passed through. Like, the opening line of the first book is not the opening line of every other book. It's like, it's a different opening line, except if you're somebody that hasn't read the books before, you wouldn't understand that. You'd just be like, wait a second, that's the same thing. No, it's not. It's the same format. You don't understand.
Right. Okay, anyway, do you have any thoughts on that, or agree, disagree?
Yeah, I agree. Almost entirely. I wasn't tracking with you on the free will thing for there for a second.
But then
did you get it? I did get it towards the end.
Okay.
You know, like, we only choose what is warped, and so, if we take away the warped period, then, we're freely choosing.
Not even that. Like, we are warped, so we choose the warped. That kind of thing.
Yeah, we are warped, so we choose the warped. But then when we're not warped, then we won't choose the warped. That makes sense.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
You're right. I did kind of have this duality in here, and you're correct. There is this duality of fallen world, fallen nature, and then those would both be restored and redeemed. So.
Yeah. So it's more convoluted than that, but that's just a bunch of theology stuff that is like, we don't fully understand it.
And I think a perfectly valid response to this is just like, shut up. This is fantasy. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. Like, I wonder, like, it seems to me, okay, Rand has always wanted this thing of, I want to defeat the Dark One. I want to make this world clean again. And he realizes he can't do that because of reasons which I think aren't very good, if that makes sense. Like, if you're going to have this very, subversive, I would call it, ending where it's not Rand dueling the Dark One in the way you would think. It's just like them having a conversation and basically like communicating via the forms, as Plato would have it, like,
a dope conversation nonetheless, especially towards the end.
Like, and it kind of makes sense. But if you're going to have that thing and then say my philosophical objection to your philosophical reason is invalid, I think that's dumb. But anyway, I will say I do understand, and this actually goes back to Green Ember again. I think that actually seeing like the New Age where everything is perfect is actually kind of boring. It doesn't work. Like in the Green Ember, I don't like it very much personally. I think it feels weird to me.
I loved it for a long time, and it kind of lost taste after a little while. Hindsight.
And the other alternative would have been maybe Rand like making time linear, like breaking the wheel in some way to where time's linear. He's actually defeated because.
But if he broke the wheel, then that would have been like against the entire idea of the series.
No, I understand that. You'd have to go back all the way through and set that up. It wouldn't work the way it is now. So my question for you is though, like, correct me if I'm wrong. There is nothing in the series which indicates this is permanent. Like, it's only unending. Like this is
Oh,
going to
yeah.
go
Like
forever and ever.
it's entirely valid for me to go pick up the first book again, and read it as if the wheel is turned
yeah, right.
for ages
Or
and
people do it with
centuries.
TV show, which is fair.
Yeah, but like I can or I could go, yeah, I could watch the TV show and be like, any minor changes that are made in that,
Right.
they're all because it's not Randall Thor of the Third Age.
Right.
It's Randall Thor of the Third Age next time the wheel turns.
Right.
Like, and it would do more than just work. It would be excellent.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the problem with that is just like, okay, that robs all the meaning from this, Like you have this massive ending, and okay, it'll happen again. Like that victory was, I don't know, meaningless. I don't know. It just bothers me.
Yeah.
It could be my white European Western assumptions that they're going to accuse me of being, I don't know,
Yeah.
not woke or something. But it's like I think that's like this is just more compelling to have a story with a narrative thrust that goes straight and has meaning because there's a beginning and an end, and there is a fall and redemption.
Yeah. Ends. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I think that's not just because of my assumptions, but because it's true, So I don't know. Maybe I'm getting worked up about nothing, but
Yeah. What I really want is wherever Robert Jordan was keeping those definitely massive volumes of books that contained everything that he wanted to be a part of the Age of Legends. I need that. I need that in my life because I really need that. Also, the question we have to ask now. Rand can control anything with his mind. Theoretically,
theoretically, yeah.
Theoretically. With the small, just literally two sentences that we have and like one word in that sentence.
Right. And like the most debated, like proportionally to how long the passage is versus how much it's been debated. Yeah. Pretty big.
And to be fair, it's a huge bombshell to drop.
Yeah, it
just
is.
Right there in one paragraph, and then literally seconds later, the end of the final book of the Wheel of Time. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do that to me. Explain it a little more. But like, could he possibly be functionally immortal?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's debatable. I mean, everything's debatable at this point, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I could see it. You know what I mean? Like, until he just gets bored and he's like, yeah, no, I'm done. And then just, thinks and stops existing.
Yeah. Or, like, yeah, I don't know. It's a fun sandbox.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think, like you said earlier, like
that.
the most important part about it is Rand gets to go live his life without the burden of having to defeat the Dark One or be the Chosen One.
Yeah.
And can kind of do whatever the heck he wants with that power. So
Crazy fan theory that just popped up into my head. Nobody take this as a real thing that I'm suggesting. I don't want this to be like an actual idea that gets passed around.
Uh-oh.
But Rand is functionally immortal and is Lews Therin all the way through and just changes his name whenever he comes back around to that age. And then just
I'm confused.
goes crazy. So
You're
the
saying
point
he
is
was
he
Lews
kills
Therin all the time?
Yeah. No, that wouldn't functionally work. I don't know.
It's like we get his point of view. Like that's like maybe it would work if he didn't get his point of view. But yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. How dare you leave us with the idea that he could be functionally immortal? I don't think anybody else had that idea. That was just, me being...
Yeah.
And, it's late at night. I'm going to have ideas like that.
That's true. One thing I was going to ask about was... So I mentioned in the review I read, but Lan. So Lan, it's an epic moment where he's charging towards, these people to kind of go after Demandred, right? And then it looks like he's going to die because he says, I didn't come here to survive. I came here to win. Death is lighter than a feather, And then he gets stabbed and stabs the guy.
Which, by the way, could honestly be the quote of the series.
Yeah, no, that is my favorite moment, probably in the series. Anyway, but then he gets like resurrected back to life, right? And it's like, did that dampen his sacrifice? I say yes. And you had to restructure it. You probably have to give him a moment with Nynaeve or something like that. But like, for me, sacrifice involves, I don't know, sacrifice.
Here's the thing though, you would have to claim that Land wouldn't be a hero of the Horn.
Well, you could do that if you wanted, but he didn't do that. You could like, all I'm saying is he had to die. That's all I'm saying.
But he's a
sacrifice have a
hero
full
of the
impact.
Horn. He gave such a great sacrifice that he was reborn. This is
Okay, you could do that. You could do that. Okay, like other series have done
Yeah.
similar things, but that did not happen. He did not die.
yeah.
So, anyway, and the same
Seriously,
thing true
how
kind
did
of with
he-
kind of.
Remind me, how did he like make it? Do you remember
I
how?
don't know. Like they just like got a gateway or healed them or something. I don't know. By the way, should we talk about point of view?
Yeah,
We did talk about it last time with Wheel Time.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think it's like it works, fun. I mean, I think he kind of pioneered the epic fantasy mini character point of view kind of thing.
Yeah,
And I guess Sanderson and the Game of Thrones guy did it too a little bit, but yeah, Jordan did it pretty well, I thought. And I don't think I don't think I have a preference for like any kind of style as long as it's done well. And so I thought that the point of view here worked pretty well in terms of just every character getting their own point of view and being restricted to that. I thought worked pretty fine.
yeah. Until who was it that didn't know that Rand had cleansed the source, or didn't know? No, it wasn't that. What was the one thing that Rand did that was absolutely wild, but then somebody thought that something else was happening with him for like a full book, or maybe half a book, something like that.
I don't remember.
There was something that he did. It was either, I think that it had something to do with somebody dying or the source being cleansed, and somebody just didn't legitimately didn't know it, right? Like, didn't hear the rumors.
Yeah, that sounds
or
right.
didn't, at least didn't listen to the amount of rumors or period, and just it didn't have to do with the source being cleansed. It had something else to do. But no, it was Egwene and the source being cleansed, and she was afraid that Rand was doing something stupid over there, and they were afraid that the Dark One had broken loose or something with the amount of Sidar that they were feeling whenever it shot up. And it was like a half a book that they were just, mad at Rand and had no idea what was happening over there, despite the fact that the rest of the world knew. Anyways, that's when I really got frustrated with point of view. I was like, it doesn't need to be that hard, guys. Just send a messenger, have a boat come through, have a passing caravan drop the news. But just don't be a jerk about it, please.
Any other thoughts? I don't know. Anything else we need to talk about? I mean, there's at the same time, if we go too specific, we'll be here all night. If we stay too broad, we're almost done. So
yeah, I think there was one other part I wanted to go specific about. Padan Fain. I think this is something we need to mention.
What else was there to say? But he kind of got forgotten about and had to get killed.
Yeah, how, he wasn't even a part of some of Jordan's books, there in the middle, in the slog,
Right.
I don't think he was mentioned.
Yeah, he disappeared for I don't know. I want to say a good 4 or 5 books.
Yeah, a significant portion of books, and then pops up, not 2 books, but in the final book,
right,
just randomly, and has the full force of the power of the
Black Wind.
Yeah, the Black Wind and the city, Crazy City, the one that Rand blew off the face of the earth.
Yes, man, we're forgetting things so quickly. What is it called?
Dude, I don't know.
I don't
This
remember.
is a 14-book fantasy series. I feel like it's expected that you
give
would
us a
forget
break.
things like this. I would be able to find it, but I don't have my companion with me right now.
Yeah.
which, once again, if you're ever going to read The Wheel of Time, I only suggest that you get it for the last 4 books. Do not buy it
Yep.
before the last 4 books. Because number one, everything that you will be looking up before then will spoil things.
Yeah, that's true. You'll be lucky if you kind of enter this area with, minimal spoilers, I think.
Yeah, and I think that the companion, this is just for anybody who's going to go read it. I probably should put this in the non-spoiler version. But don't get the companion until at least book 10. But then for the last 4 books, do not look at the main characters' descriptions. I could tell you stories. Like how I knew that Rand was going to be able to speak and have things, the world conform to his will. I knew about that before it happened in the actual book series, thanks to the companion. Because I thought that I was all-knowing and that I had figured out all there was to know about Rand al'Thor. But no, they do full-on spoilers about everything that is major that is mentioned.
Yep. So
all the way up to the last book of The Wheel of Time type thing. You know what I mean? Like, just no fear. No fear at all.
Yeah. All right.
Is that it? I feel like we would have
final
done
thoughts?
more.
I'm at 40 minutes in.
Yeah.
I will say, I think for me, the biggest conclusion is, I think trying to tell a story with Western beats in terms of a narrative with direction, going somewhere with beginning and end, with the characters making meaningful choices that have consequences that actually defeat evil, and at the same time holding to this weird dualist view, this kind of quasi-determinist view, this view where you can't have some human meaningful agency without the possibility of evil, that kind of thing, and with the cyclical version of time. I think that it can undermine some of the narrative thrust. I think it makes it a lot more interesting to have kind of these things going on. But if handled incorrectly, then I think they can be transformed into something that hampers the narrative. And I think that did happen in some places.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's like the most boring way to critique The Wheel of Time, as I said earlier. But I think it's valid. And I think it actually has huge impact on how you interact with the series. So that's kind of my concluding thoughts. But I think, like we talked about earlier, I think it's, for a certain type of person, it's a great series.
Yeah.
With great character development, wonderful arcs, just overall a fun time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Basically everything you said there. It was a really good book for like the time that I was in, like the stage of life that I was in. Like, I think that it was really good. Having started it end of junior year, getting to read it all through senior year, like this book series is kind of ingrained into my memories of senior year and,
Yep.
wrapping up and leaving high school. So I think that's pretty sweet. Be looking for my fanfic about the Age of Legends.
Oh boy.
Will it be accurate? Oh, yes, it will be accurate. Will it be good? It will be really good. Will it have a lot of crazy things that I think that they could do in the Age of Legends? Oh, absolutely. I'll add things that they will never even dream about in the in the Third Age.
Oh boy. Oh boy. All right. Is that going to be all today?
I think so. It's sad. It's such a good series. Rehashing this out makes me feel like it's actually done now,
Yeah.
Like no book is fully complete until you've discussed it on the podcast. And,
that's right.
Well, guys, we've discussed it on the podcast.
We've discussed it.
And
maybe you can actually go through withdrawal now.
Yeah. And I can't. I swear on the podcast that I will never, ever, ever pick up whatever the prequel. New Spring. Never picking it up. Swear on the podcast.
It's beautiful.
I will not I will not ruin and profane the name of The Wheel of Time.
Very good, sir. Very good.
Anyways, that's it. That's all.
Let's do some donor shoutouts. Thank you to Nana,
Thank you,
Van Peppy and Wayla,
Van Peppy and Wayla.
Anna, Keenan,
Thanks, Keenan.
Will,
My
mom,
Thank you, Miss Jenny.
Mrs. Hall,
Mrs. Hall.
and Kara.
Thanks, Kara.
If you guys want to support us, make sure to check out our Patreon over at patreon.com/bookinit. You can support us there, and if you give enough money, then we'll shout you out on the show. Also, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review. That really helps. Share with your friends. Well, thanks for hanging with us for Wheel of Time. It's been a fun 2-parter. Hopefully that was helpful. Okay, next week we will not have a podcast because I'll be moving into college, and Bryson will be, doing college things, and Tanner will be working hard like a real man with a paycheck in his pocket.
Right before
hopefully,
I disappear.
Right before it disappears, yeah. Hopefully we can get our feet under us in time to do a podcast before Tanner heads out to Europe, do some mission work. So that'll be a lot of fun for him.
Yes.
And sad for us. Well, thank you guys for listening. We'll be coming at you with some more epic content. And check out our Patreon, check out our website, check out our fun stuff that we do. So anyway, this has been Booking It. It is unending, but until next beginning.
The wind is passing over this podcast. It is going around both me and Cooper. It is being flown through the fan above Cooper's head that I'm watching on FaceTime. But then it settled. It was not an ending. Wait, it was not the ending, but it was an ending.
Keep on booking it.